Good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra. I am Ann Kiguta. Thank you for joining us wherever you're watching us from. We're taking you around the country and around the world, following stories as they break. In this hour, we'll be taking you live to Eldoret. John Wanyama is standing by, and Kisumu, where Laura Atieno is also standing by. They're both telling us about concerns with the electoral body. We'll be talking to them very shortly. In studio, Bishop Mark Kariuki, the chair of the Evangelical Conference of Kenya, is with us alongside Joy Mudevo, our resident governance expert. We're talking very shortly about concerns over the election, but first let's take you straight to Eldoret, where John is standing by, speaking to area residents about their concerns a few days to the general election. John.
Good morning, Anne, and here in Eldoret town, in Gishu County, residents have their different and various concerns about the IEBC Commission. Now, they are raising mixed reaction on how IEBC is conducting its business, and why people are maybe taking IEBC to court each and every time, and some bashing it with words left, right and center. And I would like just to speak to a few to give us their view on what they feel about the IEBC. Maybe, Mr. Speaker, if I can start with you, what are your concerns about the IEBC?
I think for the last about 1 year, it is very clear, and Kenyans have seen the lack of preparedness by IEBC to handle the 2017 general election. Using an analogy of football, where I can say that the coaches of both Jubilee and NASA, they have done their part. Their players are ready. They are ready to go to the field. But if the referee is not ready to ensure that the playing ground and the regulation are observed, then this is going to be a recipe of chaos going forward. Secondly, I have always raised this concern that IEBC, led by the chairman, have not been in a position to exhibit that confidence to Kenyans. The reason why you see everybody is going to court, because IEBC have not managed to be able to show that confidence and trust among Kenyans that they are going to do the right job. You see, His Excellency the President is raising concern about IEBC. Raila Amolo and the NASA team are raising concern about IEBC. All that we are asking IEBC to stop the pedestrian decisions. It is so unfortunate that a decision like the ballot paper printing, it will be allowed to be decided by a judge. Something that if IEBC had used a bit of wisdom, these are some of the things that they could have done the negotiations. They could have done the negotiation under the boardroom. So the problem we have now, decisions that are supposed to be made in the bedroom are going to be made before the public, be it in the court, be it in the press release. And I think that is the reason why we are raising. And I want to say this: His Excellency the President has made it very clearly that elections must be done on 8th of August 2017. Failure to do so, Jubilee, we are not going to accept. NASA is raising the same concern. That means the concern for 44 million Kenyans now is not Jubilee or NASA. The battle is at the IEBC doorstep, led by the chairman. And we want to tell the chairman with no uncertain term, they must ensure that elections for 2017 are credible, transparent and fair. So that if they want to assure Kenya, let me tell you, already I know the President and the Jubilee and the NASA president candidate, all of them are saying if the election are going to be done fairly, we will be able to accept. That means if this election is not going to be done fairly, then the board leaders are not going to do what? To accept. What does it mean? It's going to mean they're going to be having a lot of chaos in this country. And so in case of anything, IEBC should take the responsibility 100%.
Thank you. Maybe what are your concerns also?
My concern to IEBC is that IEBC, number one, they must conduct election in a free and fair manner, like my brother said. Number two, we want IEBC to have all ballot papers in time. Number three, we want IEBC to bring us into one harmony, because our country needs peace, and we should vote on that day, on 8th. Number three, we want IEBC to avail themselves with everything. We don't want IEBC to bring us some things, at ilikuwa. Hatutaki hiyo. IEBC again must conduct everything that we want every player in the field. We want every player in the field. What we don't want is all these court cases will not help us. In fact, if you want to go to court today, tomorrow, I had it's almost 19 cases concerning IEBC. All these are really going straight to Chebukati. Chebukati must see all these things, and he must act as person who si mutu mwoga, asikae mutu mwoga, akae mutu straight kama Hassan. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and those are few concerns about from residents here in Uasin Gishu, Eldoret town. And what we are telling residents is, if it means that they must ban anything, whether there will be election or not, then they must ban rubbish. And if they have to kill anything, then let them kill maybe rats anywhere else. From my side, and over to you, studio.
Hi, Wanyama. Wow, God bless you, sir, for all the humor this morning. But valid concerns being raised by residents there. You've heard, of course, a number of court cases and challenges that IEBC is facing being a major issue of concern. As to whether that is their fault in terms of preparation or in terms of the way in which they've gone about their business, I suppose that will leave to the court of public opinion. We want to cross over and get more views from Kisumu. Laura Atieno is also speaking to area residents on their concerns ahead of the general election. Laura, tell us more.
Yes, a very good morning to you, and back at the communication center. And here in the county of Kisumu, the people we're speaking to, some are raising concerns. They're not very confident with IEBC in terms of preparation for the August 8th polls. And maybe if you could just sample the opinion so that we hear the opinion straight from the host's mouth. Ebu tuambie, unaonaje swala hili?
Tunaona papers ikikuwa enough this time round, the election will be fair and good, but if the papers is not printed enoughly, the election will not be fair. Yeah. Yeah, if we did it in time, the election will be just good. Yeah.
And there's also another man here who wants to give his opinion. So what do you think about IEBC preparedness?
Therefore, I'm Titus now. Hello?
What do you think about IEBC?
IEBC, we didn't believe in IEBC because the way I'm seeing, we have not printed ballot papers for the president, but for the governors coming down, we believe that it's okay. Now what I'm like to request the IEBC to give us the light so that we can know what about the president, which company will print the ballot papers for the president, so that we must be sure that the election will be free, transparent and credible, so that anybody should not complain. That's my view.
Okay. Yes, and Kigutu, some of the people who were speaking here who are actually camera shy to come in front of the camera and speak were saying that of course they are waiting for today's ruling, of course eagerly waiting to see what the court will decide on which firm exactly will be printing the presidential ballot. But of course we will be pitching camp, going from place to place, of course bringing you the action concerning that. Back to you, Anne.
Thanks, Laura. Let's get more views now from Mombasa, where Patrick Kanga is also speaking to area residents on their concerns ahead of the general election.
Kwa majina naitwa Ashim tukiwa maeneo ya Mlaleo. Kenya wenzangu, tukiwa hapa Mlaleo kwa sababu ya hali ya uchaguzi ambayo tunapoelekea katika hali ya uchaguzi, ningependa kuambia wananchi ya kwamba wananchi wawe na imani na IEBC, kwa sababu IEBC wanatambua kazi yao, na vile wanatambua kazi yao nao Wakenya wanawaangalia. Kwa hivyo wasifanye mambo ambayo itafanya hii Kenya. Mr. Chiloba na Chebukati tunawaambia ya kwamba watambue kwamba hii Kenya inapendwa na watu wengi sana. Watu wanapenda kufanya biashara katika Kenya hii. Watu wanapenda kuishi kwa amani katika maeneo tofauti, maeneo hii ya Mombasa, Nairobi, Lokijoke huko, sehemu za Turkana huko, Kakamega huko, wapi Ukikuyuni, Nyeri, tunasema ya kwamba Wafula Chebukati na mwenzake Chiloba watambue kwamba hii Kenya ni nchi ambayo inatambulika katika ulimwengu mzima. Kwa hivyo wafanye kazi ambayo itaeleweka, na wafanye mambo ambayo Wakenya watafurahia kwamba wamefanya kazi nzuri. Wasifanye mambo ambayo itafanya Kenya iangukie katika jangwa la vita.
Kwa majina yangu naitwa Jackson Katu. Mimi ni mkaaji wa Mshomoroni hapa Kisauni. Niko na maoni yangu ya kusema kwamba hizo ballot papers zenye ambazo zilikuwa na kashfa hiyo kampuni, kwa kusema kweli si haki. Kama kitu imefika mahakamani na mahakama imeamua kwamba hiyo kampuni isimamishe hiyo tenda, ni haki kampuni ingesimamisha hiyo tenda. Lakini imekeuka sheria na serikali kutumia kifua sema kwamba lazima tutafanya, which means ni kuna njama na nia fulani ndani ya hiyo serikali.
Kwa majina naitwa Patrick Munyika. Kulingana na hizi ballot papers ambazo zimekuja jana kutoka huko Dubai, mimi nasema hivi, hii tenda ya president ipiane kampuni ingine kama ile South Africa ama ile ya Britain.
Kwa jina naitwa Francis Omondi, niko Kisauni. Mimi maoni yangu ni hivi, kwa IBC, maoni nimetoa, IBC hii Kenya sasa iko kwa mkono wenyu. Mkiamua kitu ambao haiko sawa, hii Kenya inaweza kuwa mahali ambayo sio sawa. Na mkiamua kitu ambayo iko sawa, Kenya itakuwa vizuri. Na court imeamua mambuzi yake. Hii mambo ya tenda ambayo imeenda huko Dubai, hii kitu itolewe nje na IBC achague kampuni nyingine ambayo italeta amani. Hiyo ndio umeona.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Johnson Shauri Gambo kutoka Mlaleo, maeneo ya Kisauni. Mimi kwa maoni yangu ni kwamba Waswahili husema asiyekubali kushindwa huwa sio mshindani, na mwanaume halisi kwenye vita afanye vipi bora ashinde. Wameamua kwamba siku ya uchaguzi ni tarehe 8 mwezi wa 8. Tumefikia mwisho sasa. Hatuna budi uchaguzi uendelee. Venye itakuwa iwe. Mwanaume kushinda ashinde. Utauma, utatumia mawe, utafanya nini? Sasa kazi kwako. Ushindi uendelee.
Right, so some very interesting views there from across the country, really, as we just sample a couple of them, and very interesting to note, even as I come to my panelists now, how very switched on Kenyans are in terms of the intricacies surrounding IEBC. You've heard plenty of concern around Al Ghurair and it being used to print the presidential ballot. A section of those we've just spoken to saying it is better for someone else, you know, to print that. You've heard them also talk about the fact that, you know, it's D-Day. It's almost D-Day, so the election must go on, and you know, people must accept the poll result. I'll reintroduce my panel to you. Bishop Mark Kariuki is the chair of the Evangelical Conference of Kenya. Joy Mudivo, a governance expert. Vincent Kimosop, equally a governance expert. And I must disclose for the purpose of this program that Joy and Bishop Mark Kariuki sit on a same board. That notwithstanding, we hope to hear your candid views on our topic this morning. Now, the church has raised concern in regard to the upcoming election. Religious leaders have called on politicians to exercise restraint during their campaigns and avoid inciting Kenyans. They are also expected to be holding another National Prayer Day this weekend at Uhuru Park. Bishop, let me begin with you. Good morning and welcome to the program. What would you say is the scope of concern of the church in respect to the election and not just IEBC alone?
Well, thank you so very much for this opportunity. We want to say that the church is so much concerned about peace we are so much concerned about the peace in our nation, because we are the people who bury the dead, we visit the people in the hospitals, we counsel those who have been bereaved. All this falls back on us. Therefore, we are saying that we want peace in our nation. For there to be peace, we have organized prayers all over the country. This coming Saturday from 9, we'll be gathering together in Uhuru Park for a time of prayer, and then on the 30th in the afternoon we'll be again in Uhuru Park for prayer, and people are praying all over. Why are we praying? Because we have a history. We don't want to go back to 2007, and for us not to get to that place, we've got to build some confidence. When you listen to people talking, everybody's talking about IEBC, blaming IEBC, talking ill of IEBC. But let us realize that IEBC is our baby. IEBC are Kenyans. They are Kenyan people, and they also want peace. So let's not just demonize IEBC and see what one or two mistakes that they may have done, but let us build some confidence in them, that because of the history that we have, they will be able to stand up and raise the standard and bring good and fair elections in Kenya. I would also encourage us, let's pray for them. Let's pray for them. Let us stand with them. Let us not just condemn them that they have done this, they have not done this, they have not done this. You see, IEBC is the referee. And when we just blame the referee, the game may not be fair. But I am glad that most Kenyans are decided for the elections to be there on the 8th. That we all want to do the elections on the 8th, and we cannot do the elections without the referee. So let us encourage the referee. Let us talk to the referee. Let us tell them, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Instead of condemning, you have not done this, you have not done this. Let's tell them, you need to do this. Then if they refuse to do, that's when we can now throw stones to them and say, you have not done this, you have not done this, and you have done this. And where they have done good, let us commend them. Remember, they have never been involved in an election before. This is a new IEBC.
All right. I want to follow up on the question of peace, and that being your major concern. Are you seeing signs that this poll could go another way?
I didn't get your question.
Yes, because you've talked about peace and that being the major concern of the church. Are you seeing signs that this election could be anything but?
From the talks that are going on, when we listen to the politicians and we see what happened in Kisumu, we see what happened in Baringo and happened in Thika, then we are so concerned, and we are saying, let the politicians not incite Kenyans. When you go to your campaigns, talk peace to Kenyans, because when the nation burns, you also are involved. So from the talks we are hearing, there is need to be concerned. But in my spirit, I have peace in my spirit that we will never go back to 2007. We will never go back to 2007.
There is a perception that the church has done two things. One, lost credibility in the way in which religious actors, have carried themselves prior to this election, and I think a lot of the concern also comes from the previous election, where it was seen that the church was taking sides in the political contest that they had, that some churches had a kind of preferred candidate. There's also been the reputation of the church, which is at stake in terms of how some clergymen have behaved, and then now calls for peace, prayer rallies, all being held rather late in the day. Do you believe that the credibility of the church as an institution has waned, and that it doesn't speak with as much authority as it did in previous years in this election?
I think the credibility of the church right now is very high. Not the way it was in 2007. If you say in 2007 that the church took sides, then I would agree with you. Many people took sides. But this time we are glued together. We are saying we are moving together as a team, and when you look at how the church has evolved, when there's been situations in the country, the church has been involved. When there was a teachers' strike, the church was involved. When there was a doctors' strike, the church was involved. When there was a problem with the other IEBC which was there, the church was involved. In fact, even in getting the commissioners of this present IEBC, the church was very much involved. So the credibility of the church is very high at this particular time, and the church is not divided. Of course, there will be one or two individuals who may choose to go in one direction or the other, and that does not miss in a community or in a society.
Right. You've talked about the church now moving as a team, and I will come to the rest of my panel very shortly, but still to you, Bishop. You've said you're moving together as a team, but there still remains the perception that a unified church or a unified voice in the church is yet to be really heard of, that there isn't if you like, a church constituency the same way perhaps another religious group like Muslims are viewed, that they are very much, you know, speak with one voice, and that this makes them a significant vote block when it comes to the elections. Do you believe that there is a Christian vote block?
What the church has done, we have refused to influence our members to a particular way of voting. We have given the members the permission or the right to choose their candidates or their political affiliations. So the church is not coming in and saying we are voting as one. I pray that one day we will get there. That's my one day we will get there. That we as a church can say we are going to vote as a block. Right now, we encourage our members, because in our churches we have members from all the fronts, the political fronts or affiliations. So we cannot, as a pastor, I cannot stand up and say everybody in this church you vote for so and so, but you have the freedom. That's why we don't allow politics in the church, because we have all members, the aspirants are members of our congregations, and we want them to have the right to choose the right person.
And yet at the same time, some say, you know, it is the proof is contrary, that we see Sunday after Sunday politicians in churches politicking.
You see, church is for anybody who needs spiritual help. That when they come to church, we have told the pastors, when they come to church, they are coming because they need spiritual help. Of course, in one place or the other, there has been where a politician has been given the mic to greet the people, and they bring in politics. But the key thing is to know that when a politician comes, it's just like a doctor coming to church or a teacher coming to church, and they are coming for spiritual help and spiritual nourishment. So it's upon the clergy to feed them spiritually without prejudice, to know this one has come and they need spiritual nourishment, so we give it with gladness.
There has been now that you talk about spirituality, and of course this is not a denominational station by any measure, but purely from a news perspective, there have been reports in a section of the press of, you know, certain politicians seeking certain non-conventional, if you like, kind of spiritual assistance, perhaps going to witch doctors and engaging in all manner of things in order to secure an election win. Is this something as the Evangelical Conference you are privy to?
Yes, we are very concerned about, especially when witchcraft comes in, because you know witchcraft is manipulation. When you are manipulated and you cannot exercise your right, then you are being abused. So we are very concerned about witchcraft. In fact, someone told me that there is a witch hiding in one of the hotels in town, and every time we are sending confusion in the camp of that witch and saying whatever they are doing shall not succeed, because we don't want to sell our nation to witchcraft. We don't want to sell our nation to manipulation. We want a nation where people choose their leaders freely, That's why we are talking of free and fair election, not an election that has been manipulated by some witches or some witchcraft. That's why even in church we are not telling the people vote for so and so, vote for so and so. But where there is witchcraft, we know witchcraft is evil. And any politician, let me say this, any politician who has gone seeking for witches, or who is being led by a witch, I want to tell you, you will not succeed, because we are standing against the spirit of witchcraft, and it will not prevail, it will not succeed.
And yet, having said, hold on, Vincent, I'm going to come to you. But I know we all want to jump in on that one. But just hold that thought, as I wind up with you, Bishop, because to the extent that you are then saying, you know, there is that sort of and it's hard to find a dispassionate way of phrasing this, dark power perhaps, you know, playing a hand in local politics, and that yourselves and the leading religious movements in the country represent something different. Would then that not mean that you have a preferred candidate to some extent, that the ones who go this way, the church is opposed to? And if that is the case, should you not be saying it out loud and proud that certain people are using certain means which we do not agree with, and therefore, you know, the church has taken a position? Has God taken a position in the elections?
You know, righteousness exalts a nation, and when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. That is the basis of our belief and our operation. When we sell the country to witchcraft, we are saying that the country is going to be controlled by witchcraft, because whatever you use for climbing up, you will need it to sustain you there. So if you get into office through witchcraft, you will need witchcraft to sustain you in that office. And remember, there is no leader who can lead from the same level. You've got to be a little bit above the people you are leading. That's why politicians seek for a higher power. That's why they will go to witchcraft, and others will turn to God. So we are saying, instead of turning to witchcraft, turn to God. When you turn to God, then righteousness will exalt this nation. That is what will kill corruption. That's what will kill the evils that we are having, when righteousness is exalted in this nation.
You know, Bishop, I'm going to test you a little bit on that a little later, but first, hold your thought. We're going to take our audience now live to Capitol Hill, where NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga is holding a meeting with EU election observers. Let's listen in.
This is how it should be. So thank you very much, Your Excellency. Over to you.
Je voudrais d'abord remercier l'honorable Raila Odinga et son vice-président qui ont reçu la mission de l'Union africaine que je conduis. Vous savez, l'Union africaine attache une importance capitale à ces élections qui doivent se dérouler le mois prochain ici au Kenya.
First of all, I would like to thank the Honorable Raila Odinga and the Vice President for receiving the delegation of the African Union Commission, which I am leading. In fact, the African Union attaches great importance to the elections that will be organized here next month.
C'est le premier parti en compétition que nous avons vu. Nous avons dans notre programme des visites à différentes institutions, et également au président de la République qui est également candidat demain, dans l'objectif d'exprimer le soutien de l'Union africaine au peuple kenyan, aux acteurs politiques kenyans, pour des élections libres, transparentes et crédibles, et surtout paisibles dans ce pays.
This is the first part of our program that we've met with His Excellency. Our program also includes a visit to other institutions and also a meeting with the President of the Republic tomorrow. The purpose and objective of the African Union is to come here and support the people of Kenya, support and talk with the political actors of the country, so that there be peaceful, transparent, free and fair elections in the country.
Une très grande mission est déjà en partie sur place, qui sera rejointe par le chef de mission qui va venir ce soir et qui vont suivre attentivement la préparation et le déroulement des élections que nous souhaitons pacifiques, justes, pour que le Kenya, qui est dans la bonne voie, puisse continuer, parce que le Kenya est un pays phare dans notre continent.
In fact, the team of the African Union, the observer team, is already here, and tonight the head of this delegation, that is the observer team, will be arriving, and they will follow up and look at the preparations and the organization of the elections, which we wish to be free, fair, transparent and peaceful, because Kenya is a major country for the continent, and therefore we are very much concerned and interested.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've just heard from Musa Faki, who's the chair of the Africa Union Commission. He's a commission chair, and he has said various things, including one, they'll be holding a meeting with President Uhuru Kenyatta tomorrow. They have, of course, met NASA leader Raila Odinga. He says that they are interested, of course, in how this election is carried out, as Kenya is a leading member of the AU. He's also said that the observer mission is already in the country and is watching how preparations are going on to the general election. Let me bring in the rest of my panel now on this matter. Joy Mudevo and Vincent Kimosop, good morning to you both. Joy, even earlier when we were listening to residents, you know, from across the country talking about their concerns with the election in Mombasa, you will recall that one of those interviewed said that IEBC has to carry out a credible election because Kenya is a country playing on the world stage. Everybody knows about Kenya, and so there is that international interest. What is the role, in your opinion, of observer missions such as the AU's in terms of enhancing the stakes, if you like, of this election and the fact that, you know, all eyeballs are really on Kenya?
The fact that we need observer missions means that there is a level of suspicion amongst ourselves that if we police our own elections, we do not think that what we report about it may be credible. And so you look for somebody with a third eye who is not a player in the field to come and just have a look and see whether they see what you see. And you'll notice that these observer missions will only find in areas where they're considered to have fledgling democracies or growing democracies. For example, France just had an election. Britain also just had an election, and we didn't send people to go and observe as observers because they just go to look at the process. They don't go to report on the credibility or non-credibility of the same. So for us, I think because we are a growing democracy, observers are a critical part of what we consider the third party who is not interested, who can be able to say, look, from where we stand, from what we saw, this is a true reflection of what the people of Kenya did on the election day. So they're a very important part of this entire equation. We've seen now from the African Union, they've already come, the European Union already here, and even I'm sure other people will come in, not just to look at the credibility, but also to learn lessons. Because remember, the IEBC is one of the most formidable, let's say best organized electoral bodies in Africa. And African nations come to Kenya to actually learn from our IEBC on how they can conduct credible elections in their own jurisdictions. So they play a very critical role in ensuring that the elections are actually credible.
And you know, it's interesting you talk about, you know, all the other elections that have happened the world over, and the fact that observers then go to learn from them, as opposed to here in Africa and in Kenya where they go to sort of report on who was naughty on election day. And I wonder whether that is largely our fault in terms of how we've run elections in the past, or whether there remains a certain stigma in terms of our ability to run our elections, that perhaps, yes, they should be coming to see how it's done.
It is actually an indictment on our part, because remember what happened during the 2007-2008 scenario, we got to a place where even as Kenyans, we could not sit down and have a discussion about how to get out of this impasse. And we had to get in Kofi Annan and the other eminent persons to come in and to sort of midwife the process. Now, we are very grateful for their assistance because they helped us get out of a very sticky situation. But that just shows that as people, we still do not trust each other. We do not have enough goodwill amongst ourselves to put the country first and to be able to articulate issues concerning ourselves. That's how we ended up in The Hague, because we do have courts in Kenya. We have laws in Kenya. But we felt, no, we can't trust a Kenyan court. Let's not be vague, let's go to The Hague. We do this to ourselves all the time. Even I've stated here before, all these commissions we have in the Constitution are doing the functions of government. But we have all these commissions being set up, taking up extra resources to do the work that government ought to be doing. Because really, why do we need the SRC Commission? We have the Public Service Commission, we have the Parliamentary Service Commission, we have the Teacher Service Commission. These people should be determining what is fair, and the exchequer should be balancing the books. But now we have to have another commission, the Human Rights Commission. So we have a culture of suspicion. And until we get to a place where we can trust our institutions, which is even what is ailing the IEBC, all these court cases, I mean, this IEBC Commission came into office on the 20th of January. They haven't even had a year in office, but we've already decided that they're not prepared, they cannot deliver a credible election. We have a culture of suspicion, and we keep shooting ourselves in the foot. And that's why we need people to come from outside, sort of buttress us and tell us, no, it's okay, you're on the right path. Stick this path, you'll get to where you're going. Right. And I pray as a society we'll grow out of it, that we get to a place where we actually have observers to learn from it and to just sort of give us a thumbs up, but not really police the situation.
Vincent, your thoughts on the AU observing this election, given the fact that we've had, by and large, mostly across the continent, shambolic polls in recent years. Is it a year or two ago we thought we had moved away from violent takeovers of government, and we saw a reemergence of the same. So when the AU comes and says that they are here to observe Kenya's election, your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Anne. Allow me to say amen to the prayer that Joy has just made, that we might trust one another as a country and a society, because the statistics, Anne, if you allow me to share the cost of mistrust in a society. In these current elections, we are going to spend, if you look at the allocation from Treasury, 45 billion. And actually this week on the dailies, courtesy of the court cases, the challenges IEBC has gone through, that might escalate to 50 billion. If you just look at it, and 50 billion to a country that has a GDP of 700 billion.
Sorry, could you qualify that figure? 50 billion how?
I'm saying 45 billion was what the Treasury allocated to the current IEBC. And then this week on part of the media, it is actually said that that figure is likely to rise to 50 billion.
Right.
So my question is, a country that has a GDP of 700 billion, 10% of Walmart's and really spending 50 billion in an election, it tells you very clearly the cost of mistrust. And if you look at, I have a friend who voted in the recent referendum and the elections in the UK, and he was explaining to me they use volunteers. It is presided over by public servants. Even the quality of paper they use is not even, it's almost the same as what we have on the newspapers. And I can tell you, we can print these papers locally if only we trusted one another. And I would say that why we have observers, just building on what Joy has pointed out, is because other people are concerned, yes, about our welfare, but it's also demonstrating that, hey, we haven't gotten to the extent whereby we can put our house in order. So as a result, we are exporting. I think you've even heard from the members of the public saying that, oh, we would be okay if the papers are printed in Britain, South Africa, and I think one also said Germany. Yet we have Kenya Literature Bureau, we have the government printers. Our currencies that we use are printed on Thika Road, Delarue. As in, I wish we could trust one another, and I think this is where men of God, why prayers are important. But we also know the good book talks about prayer and action. We need to pray but also act in building trust among each other. Just some credit to the church. I think I would just give statistics. In 2007, amazingly, despite the fact that we had some parts of the church taking sides, when Ipsos did a survey, the church actually even ranked higher than Kofi Annan in the mediation process. So there is still some credibility on the part of the church, just as they need to be more proactive in building on it through programs that then impact directly on the lives of the people.
Yeah, and Vincent, in the next hour we'll delve a little bit more on the church, but I just want you to respond to my question on the AU observing this election and sending observers and not to cast aspersions on its credibility, but the fact is the AU itself as a body hasn't necessarily been the one to demonstrate teeth and action in countries where there's been all manner of shambolic processes within the continent. The AU as an institution itself has significant question marks. Is it to the extent that if they send an observer mission here, it's really neither here nor there?
I think we have to believe in our own institutions, and I agree with you that the African Union has had credibility challenges, as in there are times whereby they are silent when they are not supposed to, when they are supposed to be speaking. But I'm an optimist of the African continent. I think we need to give them a chance, let them issue their reports so that it informs the processes of strengthening a regional body like the AU. So yes, there are questions about their performance in the past. I think we also need to give them the benefits of doubt that they can actually churn out a report that can inform the strengthening of our electoral processes and systems in Africa, knowing where Kenya is. The former chair, that is Hassan, was actually given a Commonwealth commendation for the way he presided the 2013 election. So I think it is important that we give them a space, let them prove themselves.
All right, and that brings us up to the top of the hour. In the next hour, of witches hiding in city hotels to manipulate the election. Good grief. What have we come to? We're talking politics, all its ins and outs. After the break, stay with us.